Welcome, friends. It's fun to be up here. I both like to do it, and then when I get up here, I think, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
But, here I am anyway. I want to base what we think about, talk about, feel today on a lesson that's a little further ahead than the day of geography if you're doing the calendar lessons. It's lesson 192. I have a function God would have me fill. And it talks about forgiveness. And as I was thinking of the song, the shield, Lord, you're the shield around me, I was thinking, yeah, that's grace. And I can get closer to grace by practicing forgiveness and being aware of it, knowing what's coming next. One of the things I noticed in New York City at the conference was that lots of the teachers had methods for practicing forgiveness. There were different ways of doing it. So Regina Dawn Akers has something like 5 whys. Ask yourself why, and you go deeper and deeper into it. Mary Gerard Linehan had the cards that Martha has with her this morning that's got 4 steps, and it starts with pause, and then, step back and think. Diederik Wolsak of Choose Again has a 6-step process that goes into feeling where you are and remembering what you were doing when you very first had that feeling as a child, and then basically forgiving the belief that you created when that situation was awkward or painful when you were little. So this lesson also talks about points to some of those methods. So what I'd like to do is read part of it and then stop about partway through and switch to something that's a little more active and ask everybody to be participative, and we'll see where that goes. I have a function God would have me fill. It is your Father's holy will that you complete himself, and that yourself shall be his sacred Son, forever pure as he, of love created and in love preserved, extending love, creating in his name, forever one with God and with yourself. So to me that's a declaration statement. That's God and Jesus saying, look, this is what God wills for us. Here we are, and here is all the perfection that's imagined for us. And then, in this lesson it says, yet, what can such a function mean within a world of envy, hatred, and attack? It's like, oh yeah, we're still here. We think we're here. We're still here, so now what do we do? Now how can we make this work? Therefore, you have a function in the world in its own terms. So we're not already out here somewhere else. We're still in this world, and we have a function here as the world, in the world. For who can understand a language far beyond his simple grasp? Forgiveness represents your function here. It doesn't say forgiveness is your function, but somehow it represents your function. It sort of helps you point to a way to be loved, a way of clearing away the stuff that's in the way so that you can be you. It comes out. It is not God's creation, forgiveness isn't, for it is the means by which untruth can be undone. And who would pardon heaven? Yet on earth, you need the means to let illusions go. Creation merely waits for your return to be acknowledged, not to be complete. So creation, which is what God does and what we will do when we're in our full selves, actually is still waiting for us to finish our earthly function, so we're ready. Creation cannot even be conceived of in this world. So actually, when other texts that we work with say we're co-creators, that doesn't quite go along with the way the Course in Miracles would describe it. It doesn't mean that there aren't things to be learned from it, but it means that they're coming at it a little bit differently. Here it says creation cannot even be conceived of in this world. It has no meaning here. Forgiveness is the closest it can come to earth. For being heaven-born, it has no form at all. So we're still in form, so creation doesn't work so well for us. Yet God created one who has the power to translate in form the wholly formless. What he makes are dreams, but of a kind so close to waking that the light of day already shines in them, and eyes already opening behold the joyful sights their offerings contain. Forgiveness gently looks upon all things unknown in heaven, sees them disappear, and leaves the world in a clean and unmarked slate on which the word of God can now replace the senseless symbols written there before. So again, it's describing the effects of forgiveness. It's almost like the big terms in A Course in Miracles point to what's important because they want us to be able to experience it, practice it, try it, do it. But the definitions maybe of necessity because they're pointing to something that's kind of hard to understand or get hold of. The definitions aren't the crispest, clearest kind of thing. Early on when I started reading A Course in Miracles, I thought, I need to know what that term means. And I got Ken Wapnick's book that lists all the places in the Course where it talks about forgiveness and what's that. And I'd read them and read them and read them, and I think, I'm sort of closer, but it's still like, I want to know what the feeling is, and stand in that feeling and experience something, or it's almost like it lets the intuition in. And then what works best is, after I have an intuition and a feeling of it, if I try to describe my own feeling. Instead of trying to define the term, it's like now I've experienced it. Now I describe, also imperfectly and kind of fuzzy, what it felt like to me. Relatively recently, I started with a new provider, and there were some things that were offered as an incentive, and I accepted those things, and there wasn't supposed to be a charge until like 3 or 4 visits later. And one of the things they were asking was, fill out all this paperwork and do all this stuff, and it was early in the process, it felt like to me, kind of like pushing a relationship too much too soon. And one of the things they asked for was a copy of my credit card front and back, and they'd keep it on file, but they wouldn't do anything with it without my permission. And I didn't like that, but my default position is to be compliant, to follow the rules, to do as asked. And so I went ahead and did that, and I got home and I started thinking about that, and I found this rebellion, this feeling of being taken advantage of, put upon, like I gave a blank check to somebody, and they said, oh, it's okay, I'll just make sure I'll guard it. And I'm thinking, but you don't even know who else is in and out of that. Oh, maybe they do, but I was thinking, who else is in and out of there? Who can see it? I don't want a copy of my credit card, which just had to be reissued because there was fraudulent activity on it, in a file in an office, especially when I haven't quite even committed to this provider. So I went through a forgiveness kind of thing, and I'm actually finding the Diederik Wolsak steps helpful. I first heard about them a couple years ago, and now this time around when I practiced them a little more, they were more helpful. So he says, okay, first of all, start by saying, I am upset. Okay, I know that. I'm upset. I'm still thinking about, I'm home, and I'm still thinking about this, so I'm upset. And then it's about me. It's really not about them, it's about me. What is it about me that's getting pushed, triggered, or whatever? And then identify the feeling. So for me in that case, it felt like being pushed too far too soon, not standing up for myself, or not knowing what to do next. So it was like being taken advantage of. So then he says, so go with it, feel that feeling. Sit there with it, feel it, and see when you first felt it. Go as young as you can, and try to remember what it is, what was going on when you first had that kind of a feeling. So for me, I remember a time when I was probably 3 or 4, with my family at the beach on Lake Erie, and it was real shallow, way far out, and all the action, all the people were way far out, and I wanted to be out there. I wanted to be where the people were, so I remember asking, I think it was my dad, I was asking my dad, I want to come get me and take me out there. And he said, no, it's shallow the whole way, just come on out. And I remember taking a little while and not being so sure, and I headed out, and I hit a hole. And I wasn't very tall, so I can remember then, seeing the bubbles and like being upside down and not having the skills to like right myself, and wondering what was going on. Somebody else saw me and pulled me out, and I'm sure they, what else do you do? But okay, you're okay. And maybe I went out there with them, and maybe I didn't. That was about as far as I remember, but I think what I told myself then, so what was my belief at the time after that feeling came up? What were the messages I gave myself? Something like, I'm going to be careful what other people tell me, even if I think I trust them, because I don't really know that they know what they're doing when they give me advice or reassure me or tell me it's okay. And it goes back to something about, Georgina uses honoring yourself or paying attention, listening to my own guidance, my own spirit, and being willing to go with it. Like acknowledge, not squish it down immediately because I'm not following the rules, but to go with it. Then the last step for Diederik is something like, he says, affirm your truth. So in that case, it would be something like, I forgive myself for believing that I have to follow the rules, or that I have to go with what somebody else tells me when it feels like it's against my own guidance. Now, at 3, you can't really expect to learn that lesson, but now, going back, it helps explain at a deeper level, and that deep down kind of explaining actually feels like it's applying to more things than that one incident. And so in a way, the incident goes lighter, goes to forgiveness. And then when it says here, forgiveness gently looks upon all things unknown in heaven. So it's unknown to heaven that I'm now making rules and following them and thinking that I shouldn't follow them under certain circumstances. Forgiveness looks on all things unknown in heaven, sees them disappear, and leaves the world a clean and unmarked slate, in which the Word of God can now replace the senseless symbols written there before. So as I forgive myself and affirm my truth, that I can't be unsafe, that I can't be in a place where I'm not watched over. But as a 3-year-old, I didn't get that message. And so now, somehow by shining the light on that and bringing it out, it lets it go. It releases it. The mind without the body cannot make mistakes. It cannot think that it will die, nor be prey to merciless attack. Anger becomes impossible, and where is terror then? What fears could still assail those who have lost the source of all attack, the core of anguish and the seat of fear? Only forgiveness can relieve the mind of thinking that the body is its home. Only forgiveness can restore the peace that God intended for His Holy Son. Only forgiveness can persuade the Son to look again upon His holiness. All right, now I'm going to switch gears a little bit. One of my gifts when I had a birthday was a book called SQ21, where SQ is the abbreviation for spiritual intelligence. IQ is intelligent quotient, so now they use EQ for emotional intelligence, and this is the newest contribution, spiritual intelligence, and 21 is the number of skills that this author has been able to delineate to become more spiritually mature. And she goes through and sequences them from the basic to the more complex. And they somewhat parallel A Course in Miracles. She apparently does not have a background in A Course in Miracles, which I think would have added to the richness and depth of this work. And in some ways it tempts me to like, okay, go back and do it again with that, but maybe not. So she uses at the very end in terms of talking about becoming more forgiving or more aware of your higher self, an exercise called reframing. And what I'd like is for us to do that. I'm going to provide a scenario, and then I'm going to ask you to break up in groups of 2 or 3 and do as guided here. So this is an exercise to help us notice the difference between immature ego stories and reframing to see with the eyes of the higher self. So here's the situation. Imagine you are on your way home from work. You're tired. It's been a long day. You cannot wait to get home, eat a quick dinner, and relax in front of the TV with your family. You're on the highway. A thunderstorm occurs, and the rain comes down so hard that even with your wipers on maximum speed, you have trouble seeing through your windshield. You can't see the lane markers very well. You've slowed down, and so have the cars around you. You can see tail lights, but not much else. You consider pulling off the road onto the shoulder, but you're not able to see clearly where the shoulder is and are worried you might end up in the dirt or trees. You're trying to decide what to do when suddenly you see something in front of you that causes you to brake hard and veer to the right. You bounce around and the car comes to a sudden halt. You're off the road with the car angled down in a drainage ditch. The nose of your car is in the water, but the back tires are still out of the ditch. You open the door of your car and step out. Your clean shoes sink ankle deep in the mud. The rain is pouring down your face. The thunder claps loudly and you startle. You turn to see what on earth blocked you on the highway. You see a 4-car pileup on the highway. Okay, so that's the scenario. What I want you to do is turn and face, work with one other person, and in this case, and this feels a little retro in this group actually even, but deliberately take on the voice of your upset ego and think of all the ways that you can respond. She suggests you consider a particularly obnoxious character on television or somebody that you find irritating, and basically dig out, in other words, look for things that could be forgiven. One way, I mean, if it's in your experience or your mind that's there and that could be forgiven, dig out and list all the things, all the ways in which your ego might react to this situation. We'll take maybe 5 minutes to do that, and then we'll share and see what came up. All right. Why me? What else?
This is just gratitude that we're not dead.
Nah, I didn't come up with anything like that.
You couldn't even stay in ego.
No, they weren't playing around.
We were thankful that we were off the road, but we were scared.
That's what I said about being retro. You know, even as I thought of this exercise in this group, I can imagine doing it in groups that aren't familiar with the course a little bit easier. But what else?
And you know, so there's a pile up of cars, but my thought was, if I almost hit them, somebody else is going to be barreling. Do I want to run out there? That's not very nice.
I thought my shoes got wrecked in the mud.
Yeah.
And I could have been home sitting in front of the TV instead of this.
Yeah. And what kind of emotion do you feel? Like, how are you feeling now? What's it in your
I feel fear.
Agitated.
What
Shaky.
shaky. I was actually in the situation.
Once you get into the feeling.
Almost exactly like that.
Oh yeah.
I went off the road into a ditch in the snow. Mm-hmm.
So how did you feel?
I felt all alone because the guy didn't come for 3 hours, and the cop wouldn't let me sit in his car because he said he couldn't. So I had to sit in my car for 3 hours. And I wanted to call everybody I knew. But then my mind went to,
if you call your son and he comes out to get you, he might go off the road. And I was 1.5 miles from my house. And I was there for 3 hours. Wow.
So it doesn't sound like even now you're at peace with this situation.
I am now, because you made me bring it up, but I've been in peace with it because
Yeah.
I was telling them my son was like, this is probably, this happened for a reason. Like, he started yelling at me, first of all, don't pull over when some guy's flashing his lights at you, stay on the road. And I was like, whatever.
Mhm.
But I seriously saw a pole as I was sliding towards it, and I started praying, and I'm not kidding you, my car went right around the pole and slammed into the ditch, so I knew later there was definitely something carrying me. Because I should have hit the pole. Definitely should have hit the pole. So I was really, later on, I was like, it's a car. Like, I don't care. Because I don't care.
All right, let's shift gears and tap into your higher self. Think of the most compassionate, generous way you can respond to this situation, and share a few of those responses with each other, and then we'll do it back. So it goes back to I'm under no laws but God's, and God's law is love, and I can love me as well as whoever's asking me to do something that doesn't feel right. And if I stop and pause and wait and see, okay, so what do I need to do about this? So, okay, I'm upset, here I am, now what's the guidance? And I thought, okay, I'll ask for that copy of that page back. And they were willing to do it. And by the time I got back to it, I wasn't charged about it anymore. It was more like, okay, I just need to get that back.
And they were willing to do it?
Yes, yes.
And the other one that came up is it's okay to change your mind. If you thought that was what you were supposed to do, was follow the rule, oh, I can change my mind. I don't have to do that.
Yeah, there's
Right.
something about having said my word that sometimes locks me into something that no longer makes sense. And so, so maybe that's why I sometimes attract people who are continually changing their minds. Like, oh yeah, maybe I can be more flexible about this.
If it doesn't feel good after a while, though, if it stays with you and it's not feeling good.
Then that's my guidance and your
Yeah.
guidance,
Yeah.
Yeah. And how about the feeling as you talked this time? What are your feelings when you were able to focus on your higher self and the other?
You have the shift.
Felt
Shift.
peace.
Yeah.
Definite. Yeah.
Not as charged, for sure.
Yeah.
You went from, whoa, this happened, to whoa, I'm safe, I'm here for a reason. Boom.
I got out of the car, didn't even get wet.
Oh, lucky you.
You floated.
No messy shoes
It
for
was
you. Uh-huh.
Well, what it reminded me of was a story I saw on TV. There was a woman who, I forget what state it was in, but there was just these flash floods, and they turned roads that had a little bit of a, slope to them into lakes.
Mm-hmm.
And this woman had an SUV, and she ended up driving her SUV into the water, and she had no way of getting out or getting. And this guy comes along, and there's a video of it. The guy, swims out there, and he gets her out, and some other help came, and they got her to dry land, or relatively. And then afterwards, they slushed out the car from the water after it sank. It had power doors and power windows, and they were still locked. So how did he get her out? And what I'm saying is the situation was for him. It was, something that was going to come across in his life at some point where what does he do in this situation? Does he help this person, or does he just do something
Put it
else?
off, yeah. Yeah, be fearful for himself, or walking into the street or the road or the
Right.
mud or the water.
And I was thinking that, and also I was thinking that I would be safer getting in there, trying to help these other people that are out there on the road, than being stranded by myself. At least I'm engaged in
You're
something,
joining.
and then there's more people that are going to see this pile up on the car, on the road, than are going to see me off in the ditch. So,
Yeah. So it's an example of the connection between what we think and how we feel. So if you go in thinking, on my agitated, immature ego, and those are the thoughts that get generated, then those are the feelings that come with it. That kind of agitation, and even the tone in the room, you could tell, it was like na 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 sound compared to the second time around when you were asked to go to your higher self. Then people started, a quieter voice. Well, it's kind of like visiting your childhood. It's like going back to what the ego does. All right, let's see if I had anything else. And then it still comes up fairly often for all of us. It's like, so how do I know if it's this message or this message, whether it's ego or spirit? And the question that is the answer is, how do you feel? And you just had another example of how do you feel when you're in one place or the other. So even if you feel like you followed the rules and you're supposed to feel okay and you don't, that's what you pay attention to. It's what you really feel, not the fact that I can check off list or rule number 1 and 2 and 3, and then that's okay. All right, a little bit of closure. We were working on the lesson 192. There's a function God would have me fill, and the function is
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness. You got it. So, and we know that it's a little fuzzy, so we keep learning what that means and how to apply it and what the steps are and whose practice we want to try now. So we go a little different direction and a little different direction and a little different direction. Instead of reading the full text of the last half of this lesson, I want to call out 2 things. First of all, I marked up in the lesson the sentences, the statements that I think of as declarations, like a delivery of truth. In other words, this is so. This is what Jesus is telling us is the truth. And then I also marked up what I always consider the how-to. Here's the directions for me. So, first of all, was that opening sentence. It is your Father's holy will that you complete himself, and that yourself shall be his sacred Son, forever pure as he, of love created, and in love preserved, extending love, creating in its name, forever one with God and with yourself. Isn't that awesome? That's what God wants for us. And that's what we're practicing to achieve, to be ready for. Here's another one. That God created one who has the power to translate into form the holy formless. So even though we can't do creation yet, God created a Holy Spirit, Jesus, a guide, an inner teacher that helps us translate. With anger gone, you will indeed perceive that for Christ's vision and the gift of sight, no sacrifice was asked, and only pain was lifted from a sick and tortured mind. So think about the before and after, the 2 parts of our exercise. That with anger gone. So the difference between the first set, did you have any twinges of anger?
Oh, yeah.
But when you shifted to another mode, when you made a choice and went to your higher self, was it pretty much gone?
Yes. Peace of mind.
So with anger gone, you will indeed perceive that for Christ's vision and the gift of sight, no sacrifice was asked. So you didn't have to give up anything. You had to change your mind, and you were in a different place. And only pain was lifted from a sick and tortured mind. Here's another one. Our understanding is so limited that what we think we understand is but confusion born of error. Does that feel like that 3-year-old who's making up stories to explain what doesn't feel good? And it is on his. And then it goes through a section which I didn't actually read the full thing of. But this is the lesson where it talks about a jailer not being free because the jailer's bound to keeping watch over, keeping track of the prisoner, and so the bars of the prison become his or hers as well. So with a context of the prison. And it is on the prisoner's freedom that the way to liberty depends for both the jailer and the prisoner.
That's awesome.
So it's our forgiveness is releasing not just the prisoner from jail, but us. because we don't have to be on guard anymore. Again, go back to the first part of that exercise and think about when you were, you know, it's like you were having to spend energy to accuse, to hold that other person out there, that thing out there responsible. It took energy, it took your freedom. Because now you're spending your life, your focus on making something else wrong and explaining what was going on. All right, at the very end of the lesson, it has these how-to kind of things. Therefore, hold no one prisoner. And that can be in lots of ways. Release instead of bind, for thus are you made free. The way is simple. Every time you feel a stab of anger, realize you hold a sword above your head, and it will fall or be averted as you choose to be condemned or free. So you get to choose every time there's a stab of anger. You get to release, you get to hold no one prisoner. And then the final closing is, be merciful today. And you're being merciful to yourself and to the people around you. The Son of God deserves your mercy. It is He who asks that you accept the way to freedom now. Deny Him not. Okay, the Son of God now is all of us. It's whoever's out there that you want to point a finger at. And it's yourself, because you're the jailer if you try to keep him in the wrong place. Be merciful today. The Son of God deserves your mercy. It is He who asks that you accept the way to freedom now. Deny Him not. His Father's love for Him belongs to you. Your function here on earth is only to forgive Him, that you may accept Him back as your identity. So you forgive and you get the identity of the Son of God that can land on you, that you can claim because you were able to forgive. Forgive him now his sins, and you will see that you are one with him. Amen.
The end. Very nice.